Hi everyone, I'm Frank Somerville. Earlier this week I got a heartbreaking note from a woman named Karen. She told me, after years of fighting depression, my 27-year-old son, Troy, took his own life on May 12th. He was about to receive his master's degree in chemistry from UC Davis. He was a brilliant young man, but he had troubles battling alcoholism and depression. Karen asked me if I would tell Troy's story, and I was touched. She doesn't know me. She's never met me. And yet she trusts me enough to tell her son's story. I was also touched because suicide isn't something that people talk about, even though every 13 minutes someone in the United States takes their own life. Karen says, I want to get the message out about depression, that it's a disease and that it is okay to ask for help. Maybe Troy's suicide will help save someone else's life. Troy was married. He had a 17-month-old daughter. I spoke on the phone with both Troy's mom, Karen, and his wife, Emily. They were pretty emotional phone calls. I asked Troy's wife how his daughter's doing. She said that her little girl keeps walking around the house saying, "Dad, Dad." She said that she's too young to actually know that he's gone, but in her own little mind, she's kind of wondering where he is. Troy used to pick up his daughter several days a week at daycare, but now obviously her mom has to do that. And she told me that sometimes when a little girl gets in the car, she says, "Dad, Dad's car." Troy also left behind a suicide note, and I asked Emily if there was any part of that note that she'd like to share. She said Troy talked about how much he loved his daughter, how sorry he was. He also apologized to his parents for being a, quote, difficult son, but he said this was just something that he had to do. You know, every time I post a story on Facebook about suicide, I get so many people who write in and say that they've battled depression, that they've thought about suicide, or in some cases they've actually attempted suicide. They say that they just want the pain to stop. Many of them describe it as like a dark cloud that's constantly hanging over them. A couple of months ago, I spoke to a man named Kevin Berthia. 10 years ago, this was Kevin, just seconds away from jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. This picture was taken by a photographer for the San Francisco Chronicle. A CHP saw Kevin hanging off the rail, but the officer didn't try to talk Kevin down. Instead, he just listened. And Kevin says that is exactly what he needed, someone to just listen, someone to care enough to just listen. Later, Kevin said this, "He never made me feel guilty for being in the situation that I was in. He made me feel like I understand why you're here, but there are alternatives. That someone who doesn't even know me could listen to me, hear my story, and show me compassion gave me another reason to maybe try again." Unfortunately, it's too late for Troy now. His little girl's going to have to grow up without her daddy. The family sent me this picture of his daughter pointing to a rainbow. They couldn't figure out where the rainbow came from, so they think that maybe it was a sign from Troy to his daughter. Let me end by saying this. If you're battling depression, talk to someone. That is not a sign of weakness. That's a sign of strength. And on the flip side, if you know someone who's struggling, reach out to them. But remember, sometimes the best thing that you can do is to just listen, to show them that you care, to show them that their life matters. Hope you have a great week. Stay strong, and we'll see you again next week.